Was it a fruitful engagement?
Yes, it was very fruitful. It was an opportunity for us to interact with private equity fund managers and various investors in Africa. Obviously now what's happening is there's a great interest in Africa. There is every company, multinational corporation is looking to invest in Africa, and they're looking for various opportunities.
All right, let's start off with the one dimension of investments which are seen to be at least a great hedge against mega risk that exists in Africa, those exchange traded funds. What was said about them?
Well, with the exchange traded funds, I think there was more of a focus on the real estate and infrastructure. It's being realized that now infrastructure is going to become a big growth area in Kenya, in Africa as a whole, and especially in terms of oil, gas, energy sector, the water sector. And this was to try and showcase this to private equity funds that there is opportunity for them to invest in infrastructure.
All right. So although the conference was predicated on a heavy discussion of exchange traded funds, in the end it was superseded by other issues.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about those property investments as a safe haven and an alternative investment. Some will say, great, you know, property, when you track it against the bourse, largely it performs well, or has done so in recent years. But the problem in many African states is land rights, tenure on land, and security of that investment. How were those issues addressed?
I think what we've just generally seen across Africa is that there has been a lot of increased governance and transparency. And to be able to attract foreign investments, people need to have proper rights secured and to be sure that there is legal and judicial reforms that have taken place in Africa. And it's certainly been there's certainly been a lot of reforms in most of the African countries, which are then be able to encourage foreign investments.
All right, so we're talking private equity that would probably identify non-listed assets, invest in them, give them value. A lot of deals, though, are financed through debt. And so as a result, a business comes into Africa and incurs liabilities at the onset.
Yes.
How do they go around adding value, raising capital, trying to alleviate those debts, those burdens on their investments? I
think there's going to be more, with the development of the capital markets in Africa and the stock exchange, we're going to start seeing a lot more listed funds in Africa. There's a lot of regulations that are taking place, reforms in Kenya, the development of REITs, listed property funds are going to be the next frontier that we're going to see in Africa.
Some people are saying there's too many stock exchanges in Africa. It's probably best to try to consolidate them regionally, like in East Africa have one bourse, for instance. In West Africa have one bourse. Southern Africa dominated by the JSE, and try to operate on those kinds of supranational structures.
I still think there's room for all these bourses to exist in the market. I think any investor wants to have a variety to be able to alleviate the risk and mitigate any risk they have with any particular country. Africa is still volatile due to leadership differences, and we are still not yet reached a situation where we have got one common market. We are getting there with the East African community, collaboration between SADC and other COMESA. But I think still there's still justification to have many more bourses.
What was said about local investment? Because one of the reasons why local bourses suffer from a liquidity crunch is because there's a heavy reliance on foreign fund managers being active in the market. There is a need for locals to be investing domestically and for locals to be saving within their local economies.
I think there's still a lot of growth in that, because we are certainly seeing a growing middle class in Africa. And that is any investor. Fund managers are now going to start tapping into those growing middle class. And you're estimating about 300 to 400 million people in Africa who are becoming the middle class, well educated, and they are going to start investing in these bourses.
What were identified as investment hotspots?
The investment hotspots basically is Nigeria.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't stop, we can't leave that. It's a big market. Zambia, there's a lot of stability there. Kenya, places like Ghana because of the oil, and of course still South Africa has got still a place in the market.